Okay, chaps, because of DEI and all the rest of the stuff, we're going to be talking about something that's very close to the heart of Statsman. And he has all the facts.
Thanks.
All the facts on this. So we're going to begin. It's going to be about gay trans pride events. Here we go. There we go. How'd you like that introduction, Statsman?
Yeah, Wing Commander Starkey.
Hey, and you want to see my wings, baby?
No, we don't.
I'm telling you. Okay?
Bingo wings.
Bingo,
wings.
bingo. Right, okay. We are now also with another expert on gay pride. No, it isn't the Raven.
He was the top expert.
He's the top guy. He's the guy that we go to for everything to do with gay pride.
He married one of these drag queens, didn't he? I heard. That's the last one I've heard about him. He's run off and married a drag queen and he's living in London. But I think that might be a rumour. But anyway, when you said it's close to Stats's heart, I'm glad you said heart.
Me too.
All right, okay. Gazelle, we know you're there. Okay. Mark, you're going to be leading on this one. So give us all the full facts of everything that's going on. I mean, why can't we have heterosexual pride?
No.
Does that mean that all these people are suffering from heterophobia?
Yes.
Well, that's very direct and very straight to the point.
Well, it's their logic, isn't it? If you're proud about one thing, you automatically hate the opposite. Remember the rules.
Yeah.
The weirdos made them up. So, you know.
Well, I saw one of these imams from Iran, and they were just saying that basically all these gay Palestinian, supporters, as soon as they actually have the caliphate and they're taken over, they're going to actually eradicate them all because they're an abomination. So why are all these gay people saying, for Palestine, I
don't let the Iranians fool you, mate. That's like the sex change capital of the world, mate.
Is
Pay
it?
$1,000 off it chops. Yeah, because they don't want them to be gay, so they would prefer them to have a sex change.
You're joking.
No, look into it. You'd be very surprised.
Oh,
I was.
My word. Trevor, go ahead.
Yeah, look into something else as well. I think it was about 2016, probably 8 years ago, something like that. The leader of Hamas, one of the majors, the major leaders of Hamas.
Oh, yeah.
Who had 2 wives, 3 children, was gay. And he got 3 bullets in his chest by his colleagues. Google it. It's the general, one of the major generals of Hamas. And he got caught in a sexual activity.
Oh, dear.
And he wasn't a goat. No.
He wishes it was now.
Well, I've
that
heard...
surprised me, that. But, I mean, somebody told me that on Saturday.
Well, I heard that there's a lot of goats over there that have very, very repressed feelings about everything that's going on. Anyway, go ahead. Mark, go ahead. Give us some facts about a few things and let's get this kicked off.
Will do. It's that time of year again, isn't it? Where we've got local pride events. And again, I'm concerned about which direction these events are going with regards to a few things, safeguarding issues following last year's event in this country and abroad, plus the ideological aspect, and also 2-tier policing, which we'll touch on if we get time. So we're just looking at some of the worrying behaviour in the past before we move on to local events. Now, I know we're not quite at the level of depravity seen in America yet, but it does tend to arrive eventually, doesn't it? So I think we've talked about this before. San Francisco, there was people urinating on each other and committing oral sex on each other.
In public?
In public. And the police turned a blind eye. When asked what you're doing about that in there, they said, we're just here to stop any violence. So they're not really doing the jobs. There was a man who was stood naked with an erect penis waving to the procession, which included children. There were scouts and all kinds.
I wasn't.
Yeah. That was your day off. When challenged, he didn't think there was a problem. The kids are there, so it's their fault that they're there. Right, okay. We've seen an endless list of drag queens who've been found guilty of all sorts of wicked sexual crimes. We've had one pride organiser from Welshpool. He's been done for being a nonce. He breached the sexual prevention order by trying to engage in sexual contact with a 14-year-old. So there's a lot to go through, which really worries me when we have the local ones. The risk to children. So look, even if these drag queens themselves are not molesting children at these events, I'm not accusing anyone of doing that at any event in this country until I get evidence. But the events themselves are exposing children, in my opinion, to adult sexual themes and nudity, which is meant to accustom the children to adult-child sexual contact in order to make the child easier for the paedophile to molest. It's part of the grooming process as part of queer theory. And then you've got the ideological problems. So the replacement of sex for gender, which we've talked about before, as per gender ideology, is actually going against the gay community and their rights by saying they were born in the wrong body, which was what a lot of these people who came up with this ideology wanted to do, breed out gay people. And it's actually pushing children down this irreversible path of damaging their physical and mental health as well, and also destroying families and the nuclear family structure, which we've had in this country for so long. So we'll move on. Well,
they can only attract new followers because if they're gay, two men can't have a baby. That's it. There is no two ways about that. And if a man has it doesn't matter whether he has a sex change or what have you, he will not have the biological facility to be able to create a baby. Now, so they have to attract new followers. And I just think that this is a promotion. I mean, if a woman is gay, that's fine. But she has to have a man if she wants to have a child. Or they have to adopt. One way or the other. Depends on the way that they think and the way that they work. Now,
or artificial insemination.
That's
the
other
option to go along, haven't they? But they still need the male sperm.
They still need the male sperm. So as far as I'm concerned, and it's not an insult to him, it's a biological fact. You are either a man or a woman. You're not in between, although there are certain things in nature which do come about, which are unfortunate. But you are either a man or a woman. That's it. End of story. And when we hear like Labour politicians saying a woman can have a penis, no, she can't. Now, probably it's a protected characteristic for these people, but it's only because it's being allowed under the present government and the present system of woke to allow some of these things to happen. I've got nothing against gay people at all. Nothing. I don't have any issues with them. The only issue I do have is I don't like the idea of you influencing children into thinking that it's okay. Don't worry about it. If you want to come out and be gay, fine. But you don't have to influence little kiddie winkies, from the ages of 5 upwards. Go ahead, Mark.
This is what brought my attention to Chester Pride. Worryingly, they had a youth zone for 5 years and above, which doesn't fill me with joy, to be honest, especially after some of the things happened last year. You also had mum and dad hugs from complete strangers. They might have good intentions at heart. I'm not accusing them of anything. But again...
No, I'll state quite clearly for the podcast, we don't have anything against anybody who is gay, bisexual. Live your life and live and let live. But leave the kids alone. Go ahead, Mark. Finish off.
No, let Trev go and I'll come back in.
Go on, Trev.
Something sparked in my mind then. Whatever happened to the 2 consulting adults? They're saying everything is fine amongst 2 consulting adults.
Consenting. Not consulting. You said consulting.
Oh, sorry. I do apologise. Consenting adults.
I do not consult.
That saying has just
gone
vanished.
Out the window. It's gone out the window.
Gone out the window. It's just vanished. It doesn't seem that anymore. It's as if it's like an open door. No.
Well,
you can give children hugs. No, you can't.
Wasn't there a group called PI, Pedophile Information Exchange?
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
And they wanted to just normalize, relationships between adults and children, sexual relationships between adults and children.
Yeah. There were some well-known MPs who I think might still be MPs who were part of that.
Yeah, I remember that. That's why I do remember it, because one of them, Harriet
Harriet
Harman. That's right.
Yeah.
She was a member of it.
It's worrying, isn't it?
Very worrying if they're in Parliament.
Well, she's not in anymore, is she? She's gone to the other place, I think.
Well, yeah, but I'm on about she was in Parliament, and she won't be the only one.
Yeah.
That is very worrying.
It's just the way it's all portrayed as well. If you look in the media, this Chester Pride, it was guests including Louise and the cheeky girls and stuff, and it sounds lovely, doesn't it? But then there was people called Shagger and Penetration. Now, I'm sorry, but are these really the role models for confused young people? How do you explain what those names mean to young children? All right, they might have been in different locations and a bit later at night, but there's no age limit for these tickets for this main event, not that I'm aware of. There was a few issues last year at Chester Pride, which shows there was no proper safeguarding in place, which is no surprise, really, is it, when it's the same people who are in charge of the Cheshire West special education needs scandal. So what happened this year? Well, at first glance, it's hard to tell, but I think there might have been some improvements. And this actually is all down to my favourite councillor, well, the only one I like, actually, Mandy Clare.
Oh, now, she's nice. Mandy Clare's nice. I like her.
Well, she's
a bit of a campaigner.
Oh, I love it, Claire's me.
Yeah, do you know what? She's actually a decent councillor. She's not ideologically driven. So she forced Cheshire West and Chester Council to implement safeguarding issues to protect the children against striptease, the sale of adult sex toys, and fetish paraphernalia. There was also clear expectations set out by the council for the organisers and improved licensing restrictions, which I noticed when some of the alcohol had been stopped, and an on-site officer to maintain order. Now, she's really, really taken the council to task here, and I'm definitely commending her for that, as well as taking a lot of flack and heat from activist pylons, all encouraged by abusive comments and collusion of Labour councillors, this is her words, and publicly elected Labour government and police oversight officials locally. I'm just going to read, I can't read a whole Facebook post out, I've just summarised some of it, but one bit sticks out. She says, we all remember some of the horrible things children were exposed to. So I think she's talking about last year. How we were told this was inclusive and kind, and which cowardly publicly funded organisations and town councillors within Winsford and wider across the borough went merrily along with it all, defending it to the hilt or expressing hostility towards those of us pushing for basic decency to be restored at these events. And she's damn right, isn't she?
Yeah, I'll go with that.
Because this is not on.
Well, my question is, who's funding all of this?
Those very same councillors, John.
But how are they funding it? Are they actually bidding for funds from the taxpayers, the ratepayers within there? Or
no.
Also, okay, where's the money coming from?
They give it from their personal allowance. So you had 31 of the Labour Party who donated money to Pride. There was 34 councillors in all, 2 Conservatives, fake Conservatives, and 1 Green. It was funny the way 24 all donated £75 exactly. It's like they've been told what to do again, isn't it? You know, the Labour bunch under the whip.
Right. Okay.
And then obviously Pride was sponsored by Cheshire West and Chester Council, Brio Leisure, which is them.
But what did Cheshire West and Chester Council sponsor? When they say they sponsored it, what did they put in?
It's impossible to find out. I can find no record, any of their records to find out at all. But they were all there with their banners. And so were the NHS and the fire brigade and the police, all with their banners and children in tow. The total donated from the councillors' allowances altogether was about 3,000, but I'm unable to find the total given by the council itself because they either didn't give anything or they've put it under something else, so you'll never know.
Trevor, go ahead.
Sorry, Mark, who pays the councillors' expenses?
That'll be the public.
The taxpayer?
Yeah.
Yes.
So we go full circle again. So we're funding it.
We do. Yeah. And they sponsor it all on our behalf as well. And we don't really know the figure. I've looked at the accounts of Cheshire Pride and I think they've got about 300,000. So they're not short of a few quid.
Are they going to call us homophobic, saying this? I mean, because I'm not really interested in gay pride because we don't have the equivalent for heterosexuals.
I'm sorry, but I know people personally who used to go to Pride all the time, and I didn't hear about any of this stuff. This just started creeping through in America, and then it started to filter over here. I mean, I've been looking at a couple of pictures, and it does look fun and friendly. But unless you're there and you're seeing it, and I think Mandy Clare saved the day here because by all accounts, there was some horrible stuff being sold, adult sex toys and fetish paraphernalia when there's children around. Seriously. And the problem with that is if it's allowed to go on, then it turns into San Francisco, where they're literally just performing sex acts on each other and urinating on each other in the street. And the police will just turn a blind eye because guess what they'll be called to? So we're in that one again, aren't we? But they don't want to upset anyone. It's the safeguarding of the children and where this all ends up. And you just look across the pond and you know where it's going to end up.
My word about that is that feel free, right, to criticize. But if anybody's going to get legal about anything, be prepared.
What, for stating facts?
Yeah.
If these people would have done
well,
their
you can
correct
see
job,
what's
John,
happening in this country for people, you know, saying things or expressing opinions. But we're expressing opinions about facts. Go ahead.
we're quite entitled to. Look, in San Francisco, if the police had done their job and arrested those people for doing those crude acts in the street, it'd stop. Now, Mandy Clare's managed to maybe put the brakes on this a little bit. But if she hadn't have done, all these councillors and these council leaders and the police, the NHS, the fire brigade, and everyone who should be stopping this, right, would have just been doing exactly what she said and willfully going along with it and telling everyone it's all about the diversity and equality. And no, it should be about protecting children.
That is absolute bullshit. The DEI requirements are just a waste of money. I mean, what the hell are they for? All we're doing is involving ourselves and financing woke. That's all we're doing. We're financing woke. And the answer is, that's madness. And if they want to debate it, I tell you what, you know, why don't we just issue a challenge to Cheshire West and Chester Council to publicly debate these things, especially like DEI? Because how can you have 2 4-foot-nothing police women going out to deal with something really serious? These criminals are just going to actually blow them over. Doesn't matter how much training they've had. They're just going to get overpowered. You need big guys in police uniforms, you know, who know how to deal with these things.
Well, there's another problem. You mentioned the police. So we've been on about 2-tier policing, haven't we? And I think we've just about gone through society and find out everything's 2-tiered. So in last year at the Manchester Pride, when 19 people were arrested, some for possession of drugs, some for being drunk and disorderly, and some for assaulting emergency workers, the police admitted themselves they were stretched. But no one was called names there, were they? No one was rushed to court. Quite the opposite. This is the media, the Manchester Evening News. Despite this, Pride passed by with minimal issues and crimes. Chief Superintendent, Philip Davis, blah, blah, blah. There was a positive, friendly, celebratory atmosphere. What, while your officers were being assaulted, yeah? Okay, mate. And then in Pink News, there was a girl in London Pride who shouted for punch a turf, which is people who are critical of the gender ideology.
That was last year, wasn't it? Last year.
Yeah, and she was arrested and she had not been charged at the time of reporting and found no evidence of a charge so far, but I did find an officer who stated that Baker's call for violence was hypothetical. So we've got Bristol, kill the bill. Leftists attack a police station. It's not far left. It's not anti-establishment, and it's not terror. You've got jihadis on the streets of our calling for Muslim armies to attack Israel. But jihad means a struggle, remember. Don't you worry about that one. It's not terror. And punch a turf, it's just hypothetical. Just don't worry about it. Yet you shout Allah, Allah, who the F is Allah? And that's racial hatred, and you're getting 3 years, yeah?
Yeah.
So here we are again with the 2-tiered. So you're not, we might have put the brakes on this. Well, Mandy might have done. But when it starts getting out of hand eventually, if it does, I'm not saying it will. I'm not accusing any of the organisers of the Chester Pride of anything or anyone who was there, because it did look friendly this time.
Yeah.
But we'll wait and see, because Mandy's asked for people if anything happened to contact her. But if we can stop this sexual depravity and this kink, that'll be a start. Just celebrate your gayness. That's fine. I don't see why you have to walk around dressed as, I don't know, some kind of gimp. I saw something that resembled like a German leather outfit of some kind.
I know.
It's not something I'd want my kids seeing anyway, boys.
Well,
no.
Just for people who are listening, when they want to know, say, what's a TERF? It is a trans-exclusionary radical feminist, a subset of feminism which seeks to exclude trans and non-binary people from women's movements. Now, biologically, they should be excluded because if they're not women, they're not women, and that's it. I mean, this has been debated over in America at congressional hearings, and they've asked straight away to the people who they've been interviewing. And I can remember one of the interviews with, I think it was Josh Hawley, or was it Ted Cruz, where he's turning around and he's saying, so give me a definition of what a woman is. And the response was, well, I can't. And he said, a woman is someone that can have a child biologically. That's it. And they couldn't argue with him. It was just pure fact. And anybody that turns around and says, I identify as a woman, well, as you quite rightly said in one of the podcasts, Mark, you said, well, I now identify as the king, and I want my subjects to actually do this now.
Yeah, I want my castle and me palace back. Thanks.
That's it. Go ahead, Mark, and then Trevor.
Yeah, there's some people who want to split the T off because, well, if you look at it, L and the G and the B are all sexualities, but the T is a subjective identity. Yeah. So you can see why some of them just want to disassociate themselves with it because
I can see why the LGB want to disassociate themselves from it.
Some do. Yeah.
You know,
I mean, they've added a Q. When they tried to add the P, they definitely got rid of that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. But but it was tried. It was tried.
When I say it in a joking way, I always say LGBT LMNOP. Because I can't, how many letters? I mean, I think there are 72 different identifications.
Made up genders. No, look, a lot of the most gay people who I either follow on social media or know in real life, they don't want their identity to be letters and things. Yeah. They're just a human.
Just a human.
So again, it's this whole commie thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Identity
Go ahead, Trevor.
Politics.
Go ahead.
Divide and rule.
Mark.
Yes.
Mark.
Why did he?
Yes.
Trevor's turn.
Okay, go on.
Why did they always want to involve children?
Because they need to attract new followers.
Well, it's got to be stopped. It's got to be 2 consenting adults. End of. Right.
Adults, which is the correct term.
Adults, which is the correct term, right? So why are they trying to continually free hugs and? Well, I don't think it was kisses, was it? But free mum and dad hugs for children. Whoa! Get off my children.
Yeah.
Right. Do what you want to do.
Live your life.
Live your life in private.
Yeah.
Don't do it on the streets. Don't involve my grandchildren.
Yeah.
How dare you?
Yeah. No,
I don't give 2 flying figs what you do.
Figs.
Don't involve my grandchildren.
Yeah. I go with that.
I was under the impression that the police were going to put a stop to being on these things, but I've got photos of the police on the Chester Pride March, actually in the procession walking along.
Right. Okay.
So they're lying again, aren't they? Which brings me to my next thing before we finish. So seeing as the council like to give 3,000 of their money for, well, it used to be Gay Pride, didn't it? But now it's Pride with all the ads on. How about they give us some money for our English Pride event, which we'll be having next year?
Yep, go with that.
And we'll walk through Chester as well with St. George's flags.
Yep.
You can have Union flags if you want because it's on there too. And we'll celebrate our own country and our own identity and how proud we are of being English.
Yes, I would go with that. I would think that would be a very good thing.
Should we contact them and ask?
Yeah, we'll contact all the councillors and say, how many of you are going to contribute to this day of pride?
A nice culture day. They love culture. They've gone on about that for months, haven't they?
Of course they do.
The test. Yeah.
And if they say no, I think we may have legal recourse to actually question them on a discriminatory basis.
And we'll see, won't we, if there's more 2-tier going on? Because we should be getting some money too. Well,
we'll just ask Elon Musk to get involved.
Well, he's my fallback, yeah. I lent him a tenner the other week, so I'll have to pay that back first. But yeah, put your money where your mouth is.
Yeah.
Lefties.
Well, let's just test it out. As far as I'm concerned, I know that there is an agenda behind the scenes on different things, and our eyes are upon it. You know, we're looking at it, and we're not being conspiratorial in that. It's what we see from the facts. And unfortunately, left-wingers, especially radical left-wingers, don't like being questioned, because that's what we're actually finding out now. And I had a conversation with somebody from one of the supermarkets, and they asked me my opinion on what was going on in the country. And I said, I think there is a little bit of madness going on, but they're now beginning to realize that it's backfiring on them.
Yeah.
I said, all you've got to do is ask your local Labour representative, do they believe in everything that their party is doing? And what
fair is.
No, do they believe in everything their party is doing and the way that they're treating the British public? Go ahead, Mark.
Look, you're quite entitled to take your children to these events, but I would plead with parents to just make sure that they're safe. Yeah. And this indoctrination and this kink stuff is gone from these events.
Yeah.
Just celebrate who you want to be. That's fine. Have a party. We all love that. But just leave the kids alone. Like, seriously. Because a lot of them are already confused to hell with all this stuff, as are adults, to be honest. The majority of adults I speak to don't get a lot of the stuff the children are being taught in school. So it's not just in school, it's being rammed down their throats. Yeah. It's everywhere else they're going now as well.
That's
in
true.
Every shop they walk in, it's there right by the door. You walk in a hospital, it's there right by the door. You can't get away from it. I'm not saying it shouldn't be there at all, but maybe we should be given the choice.
Yeah.
Rather than having it rammed down our throats. No pun intended.
Like anything else, were we given a choice? Were we given a referendum on immigration, both legal and illegal? No.
What's the point? You saw what happened when we had the referendum. Still hasn't really been resolved, has it? Properly? No.
The consultation with the public is pretty much zilch. And they're just going ahead and doing certain things. And I think it's only going to be lawfare. Because remember now, Keir Starmer was a public prosecutor. That's what he knows. He knows how to prosecute. So I think what's happening now and what I'm seeing from everything in social media, I think that there is a kickback coming now. And especially, for example, with that woman that was forced the police to admit that they arrested her incorrectly. And they've had to actually pay out.
It's sad when you have to force these people to do the right thing, like councillors are safeguarding and the police doing that. It's shocking, really.
Yeah, but none of the major broadcasters have really covered that.
Well, two-tier media as well, because the Pride organiser from Welshpool I mentioned, the BBC tried to cover that up and just excluded all mention of him being anything to do with Pride from their news report.
Yeah.
Which doesn't surprise me, the BBC.
Especially with the
long list of them.
Took the words out of my mouth there, man. Yeah, BBC.
BBC. What about the statue outside?
God, sets a precedent, doesn't it?
It's still there. You know? I would never, ever trust the BBC again, especially with the way that they allowed the Hugh Edwards thing to carry on for so long.
I've said before, I've got emails off them admitting to putting out fake news and refusing to apologise and then trying to lie to me to finish their story, but I'm too clever for that.
I think it's time for everybody to get their Labour representatives, whether it's a councillor or whether it's their MP, and say, do you believe in your government and everything that they're doing? And tell me the reasons why.
And your local councils with regards to things like this.
Yep.
Because it took one brave councillor and she's took a lot of flack to actually probably halt some really disgusting things that might have been going on. They might have been, they might not have been.
And yet they'll start charging you more or potentially more for taking your rubbish to the tip.
Mm.
I'm not interested in paying for other things because I don't consider it a cultural enrichment. Let them pay for it themselves. If they're not keen on actually getting the public involved, let them pay for it themselves. Simple as that. Anyway. Right, it's time to go, gentlemen. And I mean loosely, gentlemen.
You sure?
I think so. I'm not sure about the Raven. Okay. And possibly some of our Scottish reporters. I don't know whether you think that the Cutter or Twice Daily is our gentleman.
Do an Adam's apple check.
Well, okay. Say goodnight, Mark.
I've just got a couple of things to say before we go, because, you know, for me, I'm ever so topical.
Go on.
And his name's Mark.
I know. Go on.
A bride on a wedding night says to her husband, I must confess, darling, I used to be a hooker. That's a bit of a shock, but I must admit, I find it quite erotic. Can you tell me more about it? She said, yeah, my name was Nigel and I played for Wigan. And just to finish, which is again very typical, I just realised it is. My son asked me, where does poo come from? I was a little uncomfortable, but I gave him an honest explanation. And he looked at me, looking a little stunned, and after a few seconds of silence, he said, Antigua. So again, that was very typical.
Say goodnight, Mark.
Good night, and a good night to all lovely listeners. Tune in again next time.
Gazelle.
Good night, everybody. Hope you enjoyed tonight, as always, because I did.
I don't know whether any of our American listeners are going to understand that. I'll try and explain something in the write-up.
It's position in rugby. It's not a joke when you have to explain it. Come on.